Hello. Welcome everybody to Too Funky Art, AI and the music industry, exploring what's next. So this should be a super interesting session. I'm probably going to learn more than anybody here. I'm a on-techie technophobe. So this is going to be quite interesting for me. So yes, this session is going to look at AI, what it is, what it means, and how you can incorporate it into your creative practice. This is a part of the Too Funky Arts Takeoff series. So I know some of you have been to some of the sessions before. It's a wonderful series that the guys at Too Funky do. It is supported by Arts Council England. So big up Arts Council England to continually backing this happening in the Leicester area. We're going to get into it in a sec, but I'll first off introduce myself. My name is Yaw Owusu. I've met some of you people, wonderful people before. I'm going to be the host of this, the person who's going to learn the most, be taking notes, etc., etc. I'm a creative consultant in the music industry, so I work with loads of brands and organisations and creatives across the UK. I think I've worked with the Too Funky team for about seven or 8 years, so Leicester's like my second home. So we've got a wonderful panel today that has been assembled to kind of make you be able to look at AI from different angles and hopefully walk away with a great understanding, but also a great appreciation of how it can help you in your careers and lives. And we're going to do intros. I don't like to do intros because I feel it's a bit weird when someone's reading stuff about you. I think it's much better for you to be able to introduce yourself. So we'll start with you. That's it.
Thank you very much. I'm Scott. Nice to meet you all. Some familiar faces in here for sure. So good to see you all again. Very quick overview. Background started out working in music production, then did stints working at major labels, specifically Warner and then Universal Music Germany. Nowadays, I run a music distribution company called Unchained Music. We distribute over 100,000 artists and have an artist and label services team as well. Additionally to that, I manage a record pressing plant and physical distribution company that's based in Wigston in Leicester. We manufacture records for quite a few people and ship them all over the world. And I'm a recently retired artist manager. I manage artists that have been signed to Universal, Sony, and have done some nice things with these guys over the years.
Hi everyone, my name is SANITY, formerly known as Lady Sanity. I'm an artist from Birmingham. I've been making music for years now. Similar to Yao, I've known VJ for many years. I was a student at DMU and I actually done my first bit of internship with Too Funky many years ago. So I've been to back and forth and been to Too Funky and seen the development of it all. But myself as an artist, I started, as I said, uni, studied music tech. Since then, gone on to perform. Big stages, my most noticeable performance was at the Commonwealth Games in 2018, opening up, doing the closing ceremony, over in Australia. I've gone on to do many things like music for Sync. One of my most recent songs is on the latest FIFA game. And just lots of cool music type stuff like that. I think that's all I've got to say on myself. Oh, and I make kind of like hip hop, jazz fusion for those that want to know the type of music I make. And that is me.
Wow, that's amazing. Hip hop, jazz fusion. Yeah, definitely going to check that out. So my name is Thomas Akintan. Good evening, everyone. I'm one of the co-founders of Avalon Insights. We are an AI research and training company. And basically what we do is we provide AI clarity to clients. We work all across the UK. We work for people internationally. And we just kind of want to make AI ethical and make sure people are using it in the right way and they can use it to kind of help their lives, not just take from them. So that's the kind of perspective I'm going to be bringing on the panel today. But yeah, that's all about me.
He's our resident expert. That's what we're going to call him. So by show of hands, how many people actively engage with AI as far as you understand it? Is everyone else not using it or is anti it? Anti? One. Okay, cool. Okay, no, it's good just so we know. So I'm going to ask everybody first and foremost, how do you engage with AI at the moment, and how do you do it?
In a few, yes, I use it every day, both as in daily practice of business and also as something that we utilize at Unchained Music as a sales tactic, to be honest. So on a business level, I built a consultant with ChatGPT, so kind of trained it on the goals of the business and where we want to move to in the future. And I'll get an email come in and I'll be like, I don't know how to respond to this. It may be a prospect or whatever, and I'll go, right, okay, how do I respond to this, and how am I going to make the most out of this? And it will give me decent answers back, and it will, even if it's like I don't know, we're trying to do a deal with someone, and it's like, okay, what are the best deal points for this? How can we utilize this? And it's become an amazing assistant, to be honest. Like, it's probably saved me like 30 grand a year not having to hire an assistant, and then additionally to that, we also, on Unchained music platform, we also have like an AI mixing and an AI mastering facility. So artists that couldn't necessarily afford a mixing engineer and they need to make sure that their audio is finalized and ready to go, they can also just utilize that, put it in, and get a fully polished mix and master and be ready to distribute it on the platform.
That's amazing. Sanity, you're up next.
So I do use it a little bit. Still, again, I'm not as clued up, so you might be able to help me with that. But I think on a music basis, I've used it for things like press releases pretty recently. I've also used it, as Scott said, like to respond to certain emails. Sometimes my grammar and punctuation isn't the best. So, if I'm talking to like someone who's like a pretty important client, I want to make sure that obviously I'm putting my best foot forward. So sometimes I will get it to help me like write certain emails. Other than that, I don't really feel like I've used it when it comes to creativity. I'm a bit hesitant. I have thought about using it for things like artwork, but haven't ventured into that. Memes, yes, but not artwork quite yet.
Amazing. Thomas?
Yeah, so
I use it for everything.
Funnily enough, actually, I tell you this, and I will say this I think I've said this on a few panels before. I actually don't use ChatGPT. And there are other tools I use, but in the line of work that I do, AI is important, but actually what I like to focus on more is the human side of things. So I'm coming from the human side. Well, what are people's problems and how can AI solve them? I think that's probably the important thing to address. And there are tools I use, like, for example, if I have research, I would go to certain tools like Perplexity. If I have maybe like some kind of strategy, I'd go to other tools like Claude. So I do use them, but it just depends on when I really need to use them. I'm also conscious of not using them when I don't need to because of the environment as well. But yeah, I use it and I understand it enough to be able to teach and run a company on it.
Can we get into this? Because I haven't got a question based on this, but you've just touched on something really interesting. AI and its impact on the environment. Can you explain? Again, it doesn't get spoken about a lot, but it's a very big factor for those who are in the industry aware of it.
Yeah. And I'll still kind of loop it in with the creative industry. So with AI, one of the things about it is it consumes a lot of energy. And that's a problem, right? Because if the energy source which is powering it isn't ethical and it isn't green, then that's going to cause a problem. So one of the things that I think we need to do is, first of all, push power back to these companies to say, look, if you're using these AI models and you're pushing them into society, make sure that it is green energy you're using, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, okay, cool. If I'm pushing back on these companies and they don't really want to listen, more times they don't, but I can say, oh, do you know what? I will consciously make an effort not to use AI and only use it when I need help. So I'll give you an example, right? So I play chess. I'm a chess nerd. I go chess every Monday. And if I lose a chess game, I'm like, damn, I've lost a chess. I can say damn, right? Okay, cool. Yeah. I say, damn, I've lost a chess game. Now, normally what I would do is I would just run to an AI to check my results, but I don't actually run to an AI. I'd actually manually go through and look at my moves and be like, maybe I shouldn't have moved my knight there. And then I would check with the AI just to make sure it's right, and the AI will be like, okay, cool, that's right, or maybe it's not. So that's just a practical example of
how many times are you right? No, I just want to know how many times the AI is smarter than you.
Yeah, the AI is pretty good. You're not going to be able to beat the AI. I'll tell you that.
Okay, really, really interesting. Everybody's kind of engaging in some manner. Thomas, I'm going to stay with you. Music industry.
Yep.
What are those? Maybe the simple ways that you see AI being used in the music industry?
Yeah, so I'll start in the music industry and I'll also branch out to the creative space because we do a lot of work with the creative industry. In fact, I've done a talk at Design District in London, specifically on AI in the creative space. So one of the key ways it can be used are some of the stuff that you've mentioned. So it doesn't always have to be in the creation of music. I mean, in fact, to run an event like this, it's not just about getting us here. In fact, there's a lot of other stuff. There's logistics, there's organizing emails, like making sure trains are paid, all kinds of stuff like that. So those areas, you can use AI for that. But one of the other areas is around the actual creation of the art. And that's personally where I have an issue. We'll come to that point later. But AI can be used to help you create music. Should it be used to help you create music? I'm not too sure, but I definitely have been seeing AI used on more of the logistical side of music, right? Sending emails out to P&R, A&R labels, all that kind of stuff, comms, marketing, all those kind of areas, which it really, really is good to help with, I say. So.
Great. I'm going to move down the line. I'm going to come back to you, Scott. So you've talked a little bit of how you use AI in your work and practice, but generally as somebody who's really experienced in the music industry, how have you kind of seen the industry respond to AI? Like, sometimes I hear a bit of panic, sometimes it's like, what's the vibe you're getting?
There's a lot of panic. There's just a lot of panic. So I look at this from like two chains of thought, right? There's like the management hat on, two hats, and then also like distribution and label side of it. Looking at it from the distribution and label side of it, let's look at a company like Spotify, right? So up until recently, Spotify on average on a daily basis has like anywhere between 150,000 to 200,000 tracks uploaded a day. That's a lot of music that's going up onto these platforms. So now, basically, like the predictions with AI and Spotify and all the DSPs, it's going to, like, even the numbers that I'm saying there, that's going to triple in 6 months, you know? So, and with that, it comes a lot of problems, because some of the biggest problems the industry has at the minute is fraudulent behavior. People not understanding their licenses, not understanding what they can put out, what, you know what I mean? Like, I'm using this sample, but like they may not know that they've got the right license for that sample or whatever. And it causes a lot of problems. It causes a lot of problems for labels. It causes a lot of problems for distributors and eventually the artists, because they're the one who ends up with the, you know, when the bills come down and the legal fees come down, it usually ends up with the artist, unfortunately. But the general consensus that I'm getting is that everyone's very, very nervous, because it's going to become an explosion of, I'm not going to use the word music, I'm going to use the word content, because it's kind of difficult to use the word music when we're talking about just purely about AI creation. We've seen it with Unchained. The amount of music that we're distributing has exploded over the course of the last 6 months. It's getting silly, not in a good way.
Is that in like as in AI creating music?
Yes, or people that are using AI to assist with the music creation process. We've come up with a policy recently, and this is not what all distributors are doing by any stretch of the imagination, but we have put in place an AI policy for the music that we put out, and that any AI music that comes out through our system, through our platform, and obviously goes out to the DSPs, has to be created on a ethical music AI platform. So that's AI companies, not like Suno or any of the famous ones, because at the minute they're going to be dealing with billions of pounds in legal fees in the not so distant future. But companies that effectively have got rights to the music that they're training the music from. So we would only, we try to find out where the music is being created, and what, even if it's being used within a creation platform, as in, like, you know, that maybe they're creating a stem here, or they're doing a BV here, or etc. You know, we're not gonna, if there's artistic intent behind the original creation of the music, all good, no stress. But if we know that something has just been created from a prompt, we are at that point, we're like, okay, how, who, like, where, all of these things, right? Just so on our side we can like slow the pace of it, right? Because it's quite overwhelming, and just in general, like, it's just gonna make it harder for artists to get discovered. Like, the more music that's coming out, like, there's, you know, I know some labels that, and not that I'm working with these labels, but I know some labels that are spinning up like 10 to 15 artists a week, creating entire back catalogs and distributing them. And these are like, you know what I mean? Like, they're creating, like, this is one label that's creating thousands of records in a year and putting them out nearly daily. Where does that leave your average artist? I heard a record the other day. I'm not going to say where, but I heard a record the other day. It was a soul record, and I thought it was like a 60s soul reissue. You know what I mean? No.
And how does we'll get on with this new side of things, but like from your perspective, how does that make you feel? You're a music industry lifer, so to speak. You work.
Yeah.
Work in every area.
I've devoted my life to this business. You know what I mean?
So how does that make you feel? Because I know a lot of times we're talking about like the threat and this, that, and the other, but like it's an individual thing, isn't it? How do you feel?
I mean, it's hard, right? Because AI also, like in the same breath, it helps me in so many other ways. It's like it's increased my. It's not how you should measure everything, but it's increased my productivity. It's increased my, it's made me a better, businessman or entrepreneur in the creative economy, right? But in the same breath, it makes me nervous for what's coming, and I don't know what's around the corner. Do you know what I mean? Like. Just don't know what's, and that there's like a massive question mark of what's going to happen in the next like 5 to 10 years, and I'm hearing people that are way above my station in the business, right? Like just interviews or what like keeping up with what's going on, and there's people who have seen behind the curtain, and even they're worried.
If you hear one of these tracks and it's good, like you hear the 60s soul record, and it's a bop, and it sounds like a classic.
It's a tune as well, man.
So. Like, because is this more of a moral thing? Because obviously we're here and we all care about the music industry and we all have a stake in it, but 99% of people are just consumers.
Yeah.
So do we care? And do they like? Are we all kind of focused on something that's like?
I don't think the consumers care. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that like people who aren't involved in the industry in whatever capacity, I don't think they care, because I don't think that they've. Our ears are a little bit more attuned to it, right? Like we listen for it more than the regular consumer, I think, because we're passionate about it, right? So I think if they can't tell the difference, they're not that bothered. But I think as soon as they realize or they find out that maybe like they're 50% less engaged or they're a bit less bothered because they know. Yeah. But how do they know?
Yeah. I wonder if it's like, this is a bad equivalent. This is thinking on the fly. But like, I'm going to use the Superman analogy. But like, we know Superman can't fly, right? And it's almost like as soon as you see it being done, that might have less of an impact on you, or any special effects. I wonder if it's almost like that with the general consumer. I mean, as in, if they might listen to the song and go, oh, this is really good, this. And then you go, oh no, it's not a real human. It's not a real song about a real experience. It's just being kind of made by a computer or a entity that has scanned what people like, what works, and has created this as the output. So I wonder if that's, like you said, maybe that's when they get to it and they don't feel as passionate about the artist or the proposition once they know that it's not real.
But don't you think, I think everyone in this room can agree that, music's so subjective, right? Like you never know what track's going to hit you and like be like, wow, okay, like that's something that I love and care about. And who's to say that there aren't hundreds of thousands of people, or if not millions of people around the world that are listening to AI music and getting the feels.
Exactly that. Like, but I think I remember when I first, like, this was a long time ago, but when I first realized that some people write songs for other people, but the other people sing it like it's their story. Yeah. And that hit me for a little while, because I was like, this song's about a woman breaking up with her boyfriend and this, that, and the other. Oh no, it was written by this guy. Never, you know what I mean? It's like, it blew my brain a bit. Yeah. And it did feel, not like you're getting cheated almost, but like...
It's almost like a disconnect, right?
Yeah, it's like now I think of it differently. Yeah. So again, I wonder if the emotion of when you hear something that you know is generated, AI generated or something like that.
I do think,
gives you that thing. But I want to ask you, because you're an artist in the field. How do you feel when you know that arguably, you could spend your whole lifetime writing a song about something that's happened to you, and AI, it could be generated in seconds?
Yeah, I think there's different ways you can look at it as an artist. I think if it was me, probably at the start of my career, big eyes looking at everything like, wow, there's so much to do. I would look at it like, this is great. Especially, I was very introverted when I first started. So being able to sit in my room and type these commands in and ask how I can do this or how my music can do this, it would have been great. I wouldn't have had to go out there and make these social interactions. But it would have also hindered me as a artist and as a human. But now, like where I'm at in my career, there's defo a lot more fear in terms of even just me. I work a lot in sync. I do a lot of songwriting. So music isn't just an outlet for me anymore. It's also a means of income. So, you know, if someone can just sit and ask an AI program to write a 16 on a track for this advert, and then they can just get the track made or get Sally from marketing to record it, then that cuts me out of a job as well. So there's so many different ways you can look at it, but it is scary.
I'm dead interested in that now because you mentioned before getting the sync on FIFA, and when you said it, I was like, I wonder if next time they go, we're not dealing with all this paperwork and all this nonsense. We're just gonna engage AI to write the songs that we want. Make a song like this, but they will own it straight off the bat. They don't have to pay anything other than for that system to create that. And in a world where artists are going, well, the streaming thing doesn't work for me because the numbers don't make sense. Live is great, but you've got to have a lot of numbers to be able to actually make any real money live. Sync and working with brands, for instance, they're the two things that a lot of artists are looking at. How does that look for you as somebody who's kind of just getting in the sync game now?
As I said, it's terrifying because I love doing sync as well. I think creatively, now that I've entered that world, I actually enjoy kind of putting on a different hat, a different perspective and writing. I guess not from my own point of view. Yeah. Sometimes I've given a brief and I have to write what that's about. So yeah, it's scary, but it's also a little bit sad. I think one of the main things that I love and enjoy about music is that human connection. And if that's being lost, you know, that emotion, that real, raw, intimate connection, then like where are we heading?
And I totally agree with you. And we're not going to be all pessimistic on this anyway, but like it is interesting, isn't it? Because functionally, you can see why some of these brands and platforms would want to invest in AI, especially if we talk before, and that's why I asked the question about audience, especially if the bulk of the audiences don't care. So like if you're playing FIFA in a weird, harsh way, do I care if I'm in, I don't know, where else in the world? Do I care if it's SANITY from Birmingham doing this tune? Because I'm just playing it. I just want to hear something that gets me going or whatever it is.
It's true, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It does depend more if your team's winning. So 100%. So it's interesting in terms of like if we were sitting there unemotionally looking at it, we'd probably all go, oh no, if you're running your business and you're trying to make and you're trying to survive, go with that. But as you said, the process of making music and the spiritual reason for making music and the artistic reason for it is what's getting hurt here, isn't it?
I mean, I think it's one of those things as well. Those that can afford to be intrigued are able to. And what I mean by that is like, if I was a big time music producer, there's one in particular that I'm thinking about as I'm talking about this. Yeah. And I just wanted to put a song out there and just see how it sounds and just go off the vibe, then I can do that. But when Timbaland in particular released this track with his AI artist, I listened to a snippet of it just because I was like, let me see what it's saying. And a lot of the comments, I agreed with him. It was like, you could have just got Tyler, the singer, to jump on this record with you. It just sounds like Tyler.
Yeah.
So like,
especially when he has the connections, right?
He has the connections. So then it's just like, what?
But is the challenge that you'd have to then pay a certain amount of money? Obviously, he's got money, and then he's gonna have to go to, and he's gonna have to have lawyers involved, and he's like, I get it from a standpoint of like he should and he can, but I'm like, is the practicality of it? He can sit in his room and just do it himself.
I guarantee you, though, like Snoop Dogg, no disrespect or anything, but like, I guarantee you.
Like, you know, when someone says that before they say something, it's defo disrespect. So Snoop Dogg, this is aimed at you, going right for your head top with this one.
I bet you any money in like a year from now, 2 years from now, he'll be licensing his voice for AI.
Oh, 100%.
And then you can, you know, I want a verse from whoever, right?
And then you get his kickback every time
because he's
without doing anywhere.
Yeah,
which was the whole thing with
which is genius.
Holograms. I heard, a lot of people. I think Paul McCartney was at some point was going, well, the idea is that I don't have to then go and do all these tours.
Yeah.
Because if they can create a really real life hologram which feels real good, then I can sit at home and just get paid less, but I don't have to put my physical self through that.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't think it was him who said that. I mean, that was the theory behind it.
You imagine that though? You're just like, oh, I want to pay like Rihanna to do a top line on something, and you just get like a Rihanna vocal, but it's licensed. It's all above board. It's all, you know.
The experts coming in now. This is where it all, it all makes sense.
Yeah, if they call me expert, I'm not an expert, by the way. I don't like the word AI expert because AI is such a big thing. So, like, who can even say they're an expert? But one thing I do want to add on the conversation is the music isn't just, in my opinion, it's not just about producing something. It's also about the experience, the live experience. So, for example, like in-person concerts, right? Now, yes, we can actually get an AI to produce the song, but what about performing it?
100%.
There is always that disconnect sometimes, and I've had this before where I hear an artist, I'm like, oh, they're amazing, and then you see them live, you're like, really? Like, you know, this not
name names.
I can't name any names. It's just recorded, but I will say someone. There's a disconnect there. So, like, cool, we can get AI to produce the music, fine. What about performing? Will people still go to somewhere that's AI music has been performed? I don't know. That's probably an area of research.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
Would you do so? Let's talk about scenario. So, AI music performed by an actor almost.
Yep.
Would anyone do it? Milli Vanilli type vibes. Would anybody go to it? Yeah, exactly that. It might not be as transparent as someone saying this is actually someone not is performing songs that I don't know. But the interesting thing is, say for instance, the song's out, it's playing on radio. We don't know it's a, you know what I mean? We don't know, actually, you might, like, we don't know it's AI.
Yeah.
And then it's like this person's performing at the Music Cafe in Leicester, and you come out here and it's a person that is performing the songs.
I don't know if anyone saw this news in like music business news recently, but like Daft Punk, French electronic artist,
Yeah.
they've literally just like rented like or basically bought a building
Yeah.
where they're doing like long-term like visual holographic concerts in perpetuity for forever.
And
they're not there.
And they're not there.
And this is the thing. I feel like we here probably care, but my worry is the generations that are also to come. Because the same way that like my opinion on music and live and technology is completely different to my mom's or even my older sisters. Like my nieces, they could hear that and be like, yeah, if Drake is 3D in concert, or if I could just watch it and pay for it on my laptop or my phone, they'd probably be more open to it because that's a different generation and a different mindset, right?
Well, it's like when you go to the cinema, you're not actually seeing like Henry Cavill play Superman, are you? Like he's not there in person, it's just a picture.
Maybe we should ask us the question, like, well, how will music change in 20 years? The experience of music. Now, there are a few things to look at. The first thing could be, well, maybe we create a AR and VR experience of live performances. Maybe people don't go to concerts anymore for whatever reason, and they're now able to consume it in their house. That's one thing. Another thing to consider is also the cost of going to performances. I'm not sure if you realize now, but I can't see some artists now. The tickets are they're expensive. They are really expensive.
Touring is expensive.
I spent 400 a ticket to see Kendrick Lamar the other week.
Oh wow,
400.
They're costly, and that's something to consider. It's something absolutely to consider. If maybe we can get cheaper tickets, but it's an AI version, will people go? That's an area of research you can do, but we just need to ask ourselves the question: how is it changing?
I'll just let's keep going on this, but like, would you all go to see one of your favorite artists for cheaper, or it would be more of a AR, VR? By show of hands, who would do it? Would you do it if they come to your house and you could just sit there and it'll be a performance?
Is that artist living or dead?
Yeah.
Living?
Yeah.
Show of hands? Dead? Would anyone pay for Tupac to be in the front room if they had to put a headset on? Basically, that's what I'm saying. Okay. I'm just asking because I think it's interesting because you've got the audio side of it and then you've got the visual side of it. And you can see how those things will develop in unison at some point and offer a different experience. And it's not for everyone. Yeah. But I'm just intrigued because, you know, even if 30% of this room say they'll do it, if you times that by the amount of people who have access to technology in the world, that's a lot of people and that's a lot of money. And arguably the cost of it. Okay, for instance, let's put Beyonce on. You know, you're gonna have to guarantee 6 million a show. Not that can't happen a lot, right? Not a lot of people have. But if you could go and get a hologram of Beyonce and you can license the music, or you know what I mean, it might work. There you go.
Just to add to that though, like for me personally, as a consumer and as an artist, like some of my favorite moments are when those human moments happen on stage. So like there's been moments I've forgotten my lyrics on stage and I'll just start freestyling about the guy in the bucket hat up front, and then it's like something, if I get a clip of it, it's hilarious. Like, you know, it's just a different experience to perfection. And even my favorite artists, like if I see them kind of, I don't know, like slip up on a lyric on stage, it's just that, again, it just goes back to that human connection. Like nobody's perfect. So I think
isn't it scary that you could probably program an AI to mess up every now and again to make it feel, make it work like it's human?
That's a bit weird, but like again, it's just living in the moment living in the moment and having those human experiences. I feel like it probably could be replicated.
Well, the reason why I say that is because we know that when you hear about robots and they're trying to give robots emotion, so they're more human-like and not perfect, and they do that because we'll relate to it more. So it's obvious that at some point that's going to come into the music thing, that they might do a breath instead of it sounding perfect vocal. There may be a button notes every now and again, because that'll lead to a level of authenticity, which may do you know what I mean?
That's the scary part about it, though.
The moral aspect of this all, you know, and there's loads of stuff about what you put into AI is kind of what you get back. It can only replicate things that are from the past. So if some of that content's wrong or misinformed or whatever, like what are the actual real impacts of this within like a music and creative space where the input is either questionable or being manipulated?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough.
That wasn't in the pre-question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a tough one. So I mean, let me answer it in this way. So I was looking online and I was looking at some of the legislation that's happening in the UK around AI, and I'm not sure if the audience know this, but I'd like to share it with you. So last year in July, the US passed a law to protect artists in Tennessee against AI. Good, we like that. We want to protect creatives, make sure that they're in jobs, make sure that they can do what they love to do. The UK is taking a different approach, as the UK tends to do. They are like, oh, actually, we're going to give power to more companies to take people's like creative input, creative art, all that kind of stuff. Now, is that morally fair? Yes or no? It depends who you're asking, right? The people at the top, for them, it's fair, right? You know, we've signed some waiver to say, okay, cool, our data can be taken at any time, but just because we've signed something legally doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. We have to always ask these questions. I always ask these questions on, just because we can do it doesn't mean that we have to do it. So we should just have more conversations around that.
And do you think, because I think we had a little bit of this, but in a more common thing, when everyone was talking about like your Facebook images, and when people pass, they can use they can use it anyway, whether you're living or dead. But in terms of like understanding that may be used to generate pictures of people or characters in this world, and people seem quite like horrified by that I could be, you know, you could see a billboard and it's you, but it's not you because you didn't, but somehow along the line the faces in the crowd have been something they've sourced from, and everyone seemed to kind of get why that seems absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
But with when the UK legislation passes, where it suggests that, well, with people's work, we should be able to take influence, even though it might be spewed out. Like, okay, for instance, people done the ChatGPT thing and said, let me make it like a Basquiat photo, make me look like a Basquiat painting. That feels quite wrong because obviously Basquiat's passed and he can't do, but like there are people who specialize in that style, and it's almost like, well, functionally you wouldn't go to them at all now. So the idea that your music's in the public domain, that it can feed this thing so you don't get anything, seems morally wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is morally wrong, and we just need some guidelines, I think. And that I'm actually quite impressed that you have even guidelines. I work with companies, they don't have any guidelines, so that's really cool. But we need some guidelines. Just, okay, what are the do's and don'ts of AI? What are the things that we're comfortable using it with? What are the things we're not comfortable using it with? We do research in our company, and that's something that we're looking to do. I mean, it's more along the lines of business, but it's still applied, right? Well, how do people feel using AI? We need guidelines. We need some clear yeses, clear nos, and some bits that we're not too sure of. But the younger generation, if we're not setting these guidelines, they will come into the world and feel it's okay that somebody can just take their information. In fact, we already live in that kind of world where we're over surveyed and watched a lot, and people are like, well, I don't mind, I've got nothing to hide. Well, absolutely you've got something to hide, because if I ask you certain questions, you probably wouldn't want to divulge that. So
I'm wondering from ex-retired, when you said retired artist manager before, I was like, what is that even a thing? Is that a thing? Is that you stop giving advice to artists unless you, you don't take money anymore, or you don't take a percentage? But I was wondering from your standpoint, when you were active in the field artist manager, or even now when you must advise artists and independent labels and stuff like that, how do you get your head around the fact that now they might not come to you, they may speak to AI that would advise them?
Me, man. Do you know what I mean? If they could do that 10 years ago, I'd have less grey hair.
Oh, there you go. I hear that. But is there any concern in it? When you do your searches, or when people do their searches, and Thomas, you might jump in this, is there a chance that the information they're getting is actually wrong or not applicable to the person who's searching it? Is there a danger in following it as if it's a perfect
I think
information
they get
source?
Generic information.
It's got to be based on majority, hasn't it? Or what they can find, basically.
So, I've seen a few competitors, to be honest, but I've seen some companies that, they're starting to build in, the modern day music companies are getting pretty interesting. They're kind of the lines between what's a label, what's a distributor, what's an artist and label services company, X, Y, Z. They're starting to blend and they're starting to blur in, you look at the bigger companies like Universal, Sony, Warner, they're just buying a catalog, not massively investing in new artists. It's the younger, more independent companies are obviously investing more in artist development. Investing more time, I should say, maybe not money, but more time. But a lot of these companies are starting to build in, AI artist managers. Do you know what I mean? So they're pre-training up things. So you'll log into your distribution portal or where you're collecting your royalties or you're publishing or whatever. And instead of going to an artist manager, you just go, right, what am I doing next? And they'll build you a release strategy, and they'll be like, yeah, well, we've just analyzed this and you should do X, Y, and Z. Which, to be honest, let's say there's two brackets here. There's an artist that hasn't got management and there's an artist that has got management, right? And there's no right or wrong answer for that. Each artist is absolutely individual, and some artists thrive without managers, some artists thrive with managers. For the artists with no managers, it's probably a good resource for them to have, right? Because all of a sudden they're getting free input from a company that's probably spent a considerable amount of money training a bot or training AI to be able to help them progress in their career. But after checking this out, a lot of the information they get is, again, it's pretty generic. It's here's a content release schedule. Put out your music at these intervals. When are you going on tour? Put out a release 3 weeks before you're going out on tour. There's not that level of kind of, what it's like when you work closely with artists, they become like a brother or a sister, honestly. Yeah. But you also, sometimes they're the people that pay your bills, keep the lights on. You want the best. You want nothing but the best for that person. So you'll go above and beyond and you'll come up with an extra idea, or you do something crazy. And AI is never going to do that.
Well, I think Rick Rubin said something recently, actually, and obviously Rick Rubin produced it for many decades and well-respected voice, and he was like, AI can only do what's being done, and the artists we love and we respect are the ones who actually break the rules. They don't. So I think of someone like Frank Ocean or The Weeknd and people like that when they first come out, and it's they actually didn't follow the trend of do this. Even Tyler, the Creator's last album, would he have just put that out after coming off a tour, totally different sound, no real marketing, if the AI wouldn't have told him to do that? The way he and his manager, who people are well known, like marketeer, who worked within the music industry and now manages a couple of people in that space, they would go, okay, what could we do differently to disrupt? And I think that's a quite interesting thing about it. Can give you information and it can give you tips, but you've still got to apply.
But there's also things, and on conversely, again, manager hat on now, you know, like I've organized a couple of larger tours, you know, like world tours, 60 plus dates is a considerable amount of time and admin and effort, like booking flights, booking transport, booking hotels, you know, finding the nearest place to eat, finding where a laundromat is so people can wash their clothes. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of little nuances that go into any big thing like that on the road. But thinking about it, if I could go on ChatGPT and say, right, I'm going to this, I'm going here, book me in these hotels, book these trains, this. Do you know what I mean? And just go. That's saved like months of my life.
Definitely. Sanity, I know you got
Yeah, no, I think
to get on this one, innit?
I think it just go back to that thing though about moral compass and just like emotion, like just again, just human connection. As you said, there's certain artists like Tyler, the Creator, who are so out there creatively, like AI and things like that would kind of limit, and I think it has the ability to almost make artists and people just get lazy as time goes on.
I was about to ask this question because I read something about keeping your brain flowing or whatever, and it was like, don't use sat nav, try to remember your roots and stuff like that. And I'm like, you're right. As I clicked sat nav, because I wanted to make sure I get to the I wanted to make sure I got to that place on time and I could see what the satellite can see about road closures and this and the other. But that's a real thing, is it? You have a thing where you're like, actually, we need to all stay sharp so we don't end up just relying on all these tools to actually exist. Like, let's remember a recipe of how to make a pancake rather than Googling it, because we don't know, we don't trust ourselves, because sooner or later it's going to get that bad. Like a basic thing, we're actually asking to tell us.
I think it is just the balance of it, and then applying it personally to myself. Like, there's definitely been situations probably when I was a bit younger, like starting out, and I've been offered money to do certain things or appear a certain way as a woman in the industry, and morally it's not what I stand for. Like, what, you know, having conversations with my manager, it's like, if it's not for you, it's not for you. If I slapped it in AI, they'll probably be like, wow, you probably make this percentage.
70%.
Yes.
Do you
know what I mean? So again, it's the emotional and moral compass that is missing from there.
Really interesting. Would you collaborate with AI? Because I know how hard it is when you're a emerging artist, right? Even with your credentials, you want to find producers and want to get any, like, would you do that to facilitate a faster process? And again, you got 48 hours to get a song that needs to be for the new FIFA, like, mod, right? And it's £48,000. Now, would you actively go, you know what, I can't find it, I've got no BT, I've gone online, asked people for stuff, I've got nothing. Would you delve? Would it be part of your creative process?
It depends how deeply, again.
Yeah, like, I said 48 grand, 48. I tried to do all these things to make it like, so you can actually answer.
Okay, I'm edging on 80%, yeah. So, but again, I think it's morally, I'd be like, I need to find someone to at least make this a thing. I mean, with the wealth of producers that I know, I'd at least think someone's interested enough in fit 48k, a split of 48k, to just be on it as well. This is where it gets difficult, because as an artist, you do have to be ready to adapt and just jump on ideas and opportunities.
The other side that I've got with that, and I'm going to come to Scott's itching to get into this creative conversation, but is it a fear of being left behind, Sanity? So, like, it's like, even in a studio, there's certain plugins that people may use, or processes that people use, software people use, because it speeds up their, you know, I remember when everyone started getting Macs and stuff, and it was like, oh, they're super fast and they process, they don't crash. Like, people wanted to get it because it was a form of technology that helped speed up processes, right? For you, is there from a creative, you know, a music creator standpoint, is there a legitimate fear of, if I don't adopt this in some way, everyone else is going to be faster, more impactful, more efficient, which, you know, what Scott was mentioning before, is like, is that a real concern?
100%. I think that's a major concern for artists nowadays. And not even just with the creative process, even just things like, one of my friends mentioned it to me the other day. He was like, oh, I've got a release coming out. I'll just put it in ChatGPT and ask it to do a rollout plan for me. I was like, I didn't even think of doing that. And it's just certain things where I'm like, it can be used in so many smart ways but I'm fearful again that's cutting someone else out of a job. And also I've been in rooms where I'm thinking of, creative rollouts and release plans, and it's only via having those conversations where other like ideas get birthed.
100%.
So-
And I just want to even ask on that, is like, you work with loads of creatives, designers, engineers, whatever. So like, you come to your rollout, you've got the music, and you're like, I'm going to distribute this. I'm going to go through our mate's distribution company. We're going to put it out. And you need the artwork. Are you ever in a situation, you said you haven't done it yet, but where you could go, I know what I want. I could go and find a graphic designer. I could explain what I want, and we could do 70,000 amends. Or I could do it tonight by just speaking to this entity through my phone.
I'd be so tempted, and I have been there.
And save myself
I've been very
£200-300 maybe.
Yeah, I've been very close to doing that. It's a possibility. I'll never say no to anything. And this is the thing, I'm actually very enthusiastic about tech. I'm a fan of tech. I studied tech in Leicester. So it's not something I'd say I'd never do. I just think I'm always hesitant to, and I want it to be a help and not a hindrance to myself or the creatives around me.
Scott, come on, man. I've been waiting for this creative process. Let's go.
This is not necessarily about creative process right now, but more about like kind of broad strokes. And I think personally what I'd like to see, or like it'll be interesting to see, like you think of this, like you think in like the 1960s, there were guitar amplifiers, right? Anyone could, if they had the money, anyone could go buy a guitar amplifier. They could plug their guitar into it. If you could play guitar, it would sound decent, right? But it was only when they started messing with all the electronics and they started amplifying it, they started like rigging extra electronics into it. That's when culture started to come out, right? Like, and it changed culture as we knew it in the 1960s. You go to also to a similar degree in the 70s, but then early 80s, obviously we had samplers, right? Anyone could come, if they had the money, they could buy a sampler. Anyone could press record, right? Anyone could record like whatever it is, like a quick beat of something and make a loop. But it was only when people really started pushing that envelope that changed music culture. Same again in the 1990s when we had DAWs, right? The first, Pro Tools first started coming out, all the early, recording systems on computers, laptops. Again, anyone could do it. Anyone could use GarageBand. Didn't necessarily mean that they were good at doing anything on GarageBand, but they could. The
people who worked it out, made some amazing things.
And it changed culture. It changed music culture. And I don't think that we've got to a point with AI yet that anyone's really used it to a massive, apart from just plugging in and saying like, I want to create this tune. I don't think anyone's actually, like an artist hasn't truly used it within their creative process to create something that can change culture and change culture for the next decade.
I'm going to stand on, I 100% agree with this, theoretically and romantically, right?
I hope so, right?
Right? But as these technologies are being used and to some degree form culture, I would argue, not on my life, but I'd argue enough, that the value of the music has meant less in terms of its value, as in for the people who create it. So when we talk about all these movies, like the creation and the creative process has sped up, the creation has maximized. Yeah. But we'd probably argue as these new technologies get maximized to some degree, and then it impacts culture and makes a new culture around music and music consumption and all that. Do we get to a point where some of that the remuneration for the art from the creator is like, because like now I feel like in some ways loads of people are excited by streaming, but we're at a point where the artists are like, this just doesn't work for us. So are we going to get to a point where that's now extreme? Because same with CDs, and same with vinyls. When it was sheet music, even though we were going okay, at least certain people were getting paid, and it made sense.
Paid pretty well.
And
this, I was going to bring up this point earlier because this kind of sits in between the distribution thing I was saying earlier. Where, like, so we've got like 150,000 tunes going out. That's going to amplify. We know that as it stands right now, that's going to amplify. But you look at parts of the world in the music economy like Eastern Asia, Korea, Japan, places like that. They have got it right. Like they're building massive fan bases. Fan bases are, again, this should be the point, but the fan bases are highly monetized, right? And there is a humongous amount of curation going on. Not like what we've got more in the West, where like we have these content platforms and they're just getting like, do you know what I mean? It's just like a waterfall going in every day. It's never ending, never ever ending. It's like the Primark of music, you know? Like
it is fast fashion. It's like fast fashion,
fast
isn't
fashion,
it?
but in music, it absolutely is that. And we hear trickles of information being a lowly music distributor. We hear trickles of information from the, you know, the gods in music, i.e. the Apples or whatever. And I know for a fact that they are going to try and curb the flow of this amount of content, right? Like
well, their system's never made for it. Even I think about like the promise of Spotify. Spotify was like, there's these music curators who will help. Soon as the volume grew so much, they were like, they can't even listen to that much music. They can't, and they need help to be able to analyze it. So then all these cues and the key and all that stuff that you put in actually helps them. And then they start getting rid of them because they were like,
can you imagine the amount of man hours it would take on a daily basis? It's literally impossible. So what I predict will happen and what I hope will happen is that there will be much more levels of curation moving forward. And I'm not necessarily talking about Spotify here, but I truly believe in the next 5 years, we'll see something else coming out, which is maybe similar to what you have in Korea, something called Weverse. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's like a fan platform. And I truly think that we'll see like a new platform emerge that is highly focused on curation. And again, that brings so much back to artist value and not just glut of content. And with that, maybe that's when we start to see this new generation of creators that are growing up using AI. But, you know, with these new types of platforms, if they are monetized right, they've got these artists should hopefully have the financial stability and the financial support they need to get their art out. And hopefully at some point we start to see some new actual, you know, global music superstars who are changing culture.
Do you know what? You made me want to cry. And do you know why?
Well,
honestly,
let's hope so, right?
Because I feel like there's hope around, but not many practical ideas of what it could look like. So when you said about 20 years before, I think we go to this dystopia feeling of like darkness, and it's like we're in this room and everything's lights and purple and like a bit like that artwork. And it's like everything's futuristic, and it's like we may be present, we may not, but we're probably attached to some kind of lead or some kind of headset or something. What you suggested there's a middle ground where it can be, but like the value of the ones who are actually for real, who are really good and are really prepared to connect with audiences, but they will still be able to thrive.
But you've got to think, but it's so funny how we've come, right? Like, I mean, like I grew in the 90s, like older than most of the people sitting here, I think, right? Like, and I remember, like, you know, I grew up listening to CDs and the artists that made it, like, they were huge, right? And then obviously we had this massive digital revolution, and then all of a sudden there were a lot more artists breaking through, which for creativity and for musicality and for people being able to express themselves, amazing. Because, you know, we all start somewhere in music, right? Like all of us, we need to be able to get our music out, we need to be able to push it, but it's due to this technology, it's almost gone too far. Well, it has gone too far. It has gone too far, and it needs to reel back. But the only way it is going to reel back is going to reel back in the same way that we had these major labels in the 1990s and earlier, of course, where like only the lucky few get in. But
so you might need that funnel again. So I'll come back to you. Thomas, I'm interested because Scott's done his like look forward to the future, and he's talked about like what could be. You're looking over even a broader landscape, creativity as a whole. Do you foresee there's going to be maybe mavericks and leaders who are going to create these new models that feel like they uphold old values but use new technology?
One of the things I'm seeing is that, first of all, we need to talk about context. So right now we are in a Western standpoint. There are people that, first of all, can't play musical instruments because they have disabilities. Does that now mean that they cannot produce music? Well, actually, AI changes that for them.
Yes, yeah.
They're now able to play the guitar and do all kinds of creative stuff that they wanted to do.
And even people like me who are tone deaf, who can't do anything, I can now make music.
Yeah, so there are ways that it can help. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm like, okay, this is potentially a way it can help. Also, people in less privileged places of the world where they actually physically can't even go to these areas to kind of record, it opens opportunities for them. It allows them now to create music, maybe not to the same standpoint, but at least something that they can do with the power of AI. And those are the places I think they should be plugged in. Are they being plugged in those areas? Or is AI being used in those areas? Absolutely not, because the companies are mainly pushing it for profit. But just because the companies want to use it for profit doesn't mean that we as consumers have to use it for profit.
So is technology like AI the great leveler? So you talked about, disability. I mentioned lack of talent. Talked about distance, proximity to opportunity. We talked before about the money thing. You can get your work mixed and mastered. It won't cost anywhere near getting it done by a Grammy-winning mixed and master engineer who will cost tens of thousands of pounds. So we talk about like the great leveling there, but is it leveling in reality? Is this technology, like we're here and we're getting information? I'm sure there's people who knew this information 10 years ago that we're talking about now. Is the information flow trickling down? Is the technology trickling down? Is it affordable? Is it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
What's the reality?
In the creative space, I don't know. I can't answer that. But I can speak on the other spaces that I do work in. Yes. So I as my company, we just done a session with a charity organization that they want to do AI for bid writing. Charities all the time, they write bids, they write grants, okay? They're doing it, they were doing it the old school way, but with AI now, they can kind of automate that sort of stuff.
Feel sorry for all those bid writers who used to earn like £750 plus 10% commission every time they wrote a bid.
There's ways it can help them. So I am seeing it through my experience that it is leveling the playing field for other industries. For the creative,
what about in music?
In music, I don't know. I'm not seeing that just yet. I would like to see perhaps some kind of separate category of music. And this is just my thought here. This is just me, crazily thinking. Maybe we can have an AI category of music. Hey,
what an idea for a distributor. Tick that box. And the award show. Imagine the sponsorship. Imagine the corporate tables getting bought on that one, eh?
AI award show. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Anyway, I'm going to have to wrap it up now. The Two Funky Arts, you follow them. Please give a round of applause to our wonderful, wonderful panelists who actually blew my brain today. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming. And please do tell people about this, because you know what? You're in a room and you're hearing things that are going to actually help you guys go forward. So please keep telling people about what Too Funky are doing here and what we're trying to build, because you know what, as Thomas said, not all the information is trickling down, but right now, Too Funky's created this platform to make sure you do get the information and fill in your evaluation forms, because Sam is looking at me in a very serious way. Thank you very much, everyone.